a very warm welcome to the webinar today. We're going to be talking about digital media, and I know that's quite a wide area, but hopefully most of you will get something out of this. So this is me with hair. I always start with this slide because people don't believe me when I say I used to have hair, but I did. And that's me with hair. So just in case you wondered, here's the value of this webinar. You see me with hair. Okay, so a bit about background about me. Well, I have a corporate background originally. Worked for some big companies like Microsoft. I was head of communications for Thomas Cook, and I was customer services director for Phones for You. All these companies, certainly Thomas Cook and Phones for You, went really downhill after I left. In fact, two of them no longer exist, of course, which just goes to show you the state of the world that we live in and commerce. Then in 2003, I had an epiphany, actually. And if I'm honest, and I tend to be, what you see is what you get with me, what happened was and some of you might be able to relate to this, I just got to the point where I didn't feel fulfilled anymore. I'd worked really hard to get to those levels of senior management, if you like. And I kind of got there and looked around and thought, blimey, is this it? You know, and it was more and more. And as the further I went up the tree, as it were, the worse it got in terms of politics and all that stuff. And it's just kind of just couldn't be doing with it. Spending half my life on politics. And I'm a doer. I'm a doer by nature. So in 2003, I decided that I was going to jump ship and go out on my own. And I decided that what I'd start off with was doing some research. And that research was, hi, Safraz, you got it sorted.
Yeah, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, great to see you. So what I decided was I'd do some research on the key drivers behind success and fulfillment, actually, in work, because it always used to fascinate me how some businesses would succeed, some businesses wouldn't succeed, some entrepreneurs succeeded, some entrepreneurs didn't succeed, and even projects. If you think about it in corporate land, lots of projects, and some were really great and some succeeded and some didn't. So I decided I'd go out and research what the key drivers behind success were. So it was one of those learning points in life where if you don't ask, you don't get. So I went out and I asked numerous people from sport, education, obviously business, entertainment, and politics, you name it, and I asked them if I could interview them about their journey, their success journey. And as I say, if you don't ask, you don't get. And it was a classic, really, because you know, some said yes, some said no, and some ignored me, and some said maybe at some point contact me again. But fortunately, a good number of people came back to me and agreed to do the interviews. So I thought, well, I've been really cheeky already to ask these people, and a number of them were high profile people, household names you'd know. I thought, well, I've been really cheeky. I'm going to be even more cheeky and ask them if I can record them, if I can video the interviews. Now, as I say, this was back in 2003, so there's nothing like Zoom or anything like that. In fact, even YouTube didn't come till 2006. So obviously I had to go face to face to do those interviews. Unfortunately, the good thing was there was nothing called COVID-19 in those days. So we didn't have to mask up at all, apart from maybe in London when you had to wear masks because of the pollution. But that's another conversation, another webinar. So that's what I did. And I went out and I decided to research success. And somebody said to me, and I'd love to say it was my idea, but it wasn't. Somebody said to me, why don't you put those video interviews online in order for people to watch them? So I thought that's a good idea. Now, that might not seem like a big deal now, and it isn't a big deal now. But in 2003, only half the country could even watch a video. So as I said, YouTube didn't even come out until 2006. So watching video online and producing video online was a real challenge. But the reason I mention it is because that's probably where I guess what you might call my passion or my love affair with digital media and video and audio and media and all that started, really. And it was just absolutely fantastic. And incidentally, I did actually find out 12 key things that people tend to do when they're successful or fulfilled in their careers or in their businesses. The bad news is that's another webinar. I haven't got time to cover it off today, but there were 12 key areas that I did find in abundance whenever somebody succeeded. And I set that up and I did that as a course. But that's, as I said, that's another story. So expertsonline.tv was where really the journey started in 2003. I then got a bit of a bug for this entrepreneurial thing and decided that I would start a new digital magazine online called Tweeting Times. And that again was video centric. So I think it was probably the world's first video centric magazine connected to Twitter. It may well not have been, but until somebody challenges me on it, and somebody will probably at some point, then I'll have to admit that possibly it was the UK's first. But that was great fun doing. And another lesson again, we went out, we spoke to people, celebrities, this kind of thing, said, would you appear in our digital magazine? We'd like to do a video interview with you. Don't ask, don't get. So hopefully you're getting that from this. And sure enough, they came back and we produced what was possibly the world's first digital video magazine linked to Twitter. And that was called Tweeting Times. So I'm just going through this just to give you some context, I suppose, of who I am and what I'm about. So my purpose today really is to provide you with 4 eyes. I call it the 4 eyes. It's information, insight, ideas, and inspiration. And the fourth one is possibly the most important for me and the most enjoyable for me. And that's that if as a result of watching this, you get inspired to go out and find out more about digital media and experiment and explore the world of video and podcasts and all that stuff, then that's where I get my buzz. And sometimes I'll get emails from people or messages on social media from people saying, look, went on your course, came on your webinar, love what you were saying. I've gone out and I've just done my 6th episode of my podcast. That's where I get my enjoyment from, if I'm actually honest. So it's mainly about just trying to inspire. The bad news, to be honest, is that unfortunately, as a result of an hour and a half webinar, you won't become an expert in digital media. I think the formal example is 10,000 hours of doing it and learning about it before you become an expert. So an hour and a half may be a bit limited. However, what it will hopefully do is give you some ideas and thoughts and inspiration as to what you can do and why you should consider it and why you should at least think about it. I never preach. I never say to people, you know, oh, you must go and do this. You have to make your own minds up. You're adults and it's your choice. But hopefully it'll give you some, as I say, inspiration or ideas as to how you can experiment and play with it and go out and find more and go out and learn more from the process. So I always talk about these sessions as a bit like a trip to the supermarket. I'm sorry, this was taken obviously before COVID, so he's not got a mask on. Anybody picks that up. And the reason I say it's like being at a supermarket is because when I run these things, everybody's at a different stage of their understanding and development of digital media and the opportunities that it creates. So what I mean by that is at one end of the spectrum, you've got people who are vlogging, who are doing videos, who are doing their own podcasts, and have been doing it for a few years. You've got people going out and about producing really high quality. They've got cameras, they've got all this posh stuff and all the rest of it. And then at the other end, you've got some people who are right at the start of their journey. Maybe they've not worked out quite how to turn the iPad on yet. That's just obviously a joke. But at the end of the day, you can see everybody's got different experiences and at different stages of that journey. So just like you go to a supermarket, when you go to a supermarket, like this fella here, you will put some things in the basket that you need or you want at that time, and you'll leave other things on the shelf that you don't need or you don't want or you don't particularly need at that time. So think of this session as a bit like that. So at the end of it, hopefully you'll have got some things in your basket which will be useful, which have inspired you, which have got you interested. and other things might be a bit too advanced or a little bit too much to get your head around, and you might not quite be ready for that. So just put some things in the basket, leave some things in the shelf, and then at the end of the session, you should have a few things in your basket. If I've done my job right, you will have a few things in your basket. If I've not done my job right, then you won't have any things in your basket, and then I'll be sacked. I'm just checking now to see who else is on. Oh, hello. I recognize that face. Where are we? There she is. Debbie. Hello, Debbie. You're on mute.
I'll get it one day. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, great to see you. I was just saying the first part of this is just setting context. So you'll have heard of some of this before, but the second bit you won't have heard. So that's fine. But as I said to Claire, you probably won't remember anyway.
No.
You've slept a lot since the first session, haven't you?
No, but I know I had to leave early, so I'm looking forward to today.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Right. Okay, then. I'm just double checking that we've not got anybody else I need to say hello to. Okay. Nope, that's good. Right. So we're at the supermarket. So I want you to say hello now, because you know when we're in a big, normally if we were in a proper room, we'd be saying hello to each other. And I know one of the things that Winning Pitch and Boost Lancashire are keen to see more of is people networking through these events, which makes absolute sense, because the one thing I have learned actually over these many years and getting this bald head has been networking and knowing people and who you know is absolutely true to be critical to your overall success and fulfillment in your career and your business. And those of you that are in business, those of you that are successful in careers, I'm sure you'll know yourselves that if you know the right people, you have the right people in your networks, they can be really, really useful to you, and you can be useful to them. And there is that saying, isn't there? It's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think there's a certain amount of truth in that. So just have a think for a second, in case you can't remember your name. Think about your name, what you do. So I'm interested in obviously what you do in terms of whether you're in a job, in a career, whether you've got plans to start a business, whether you're already running your own business, and then something weird or different about you that people might not know. Now, most of the people on here probably won't know it because you kind of don't know each other, but maybe when I say something weird, something unusual, something that's so that people might think, oh, that's a bit unusual. If you can't think of anything, just don't bother. It's not the law. So you're absolutely fine if you can't come up with something weird or different. Is that okay for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just going to make a couple of notes if you don't mind here. So I'm just going to go down then. Sue Edwards, you're the first one on my screen. So I've not deliberately picked you, Sue, but you are the first one on my screen. So introduce yourself to us then.
Hi everybody, I'm Sue Edwards. I run Timeless Gardens, which is garden design, landscape, sort of project management, that sort of thing. Anything outdoors basically that has to do anything to do with gardens. Excuse me. Something weird about me, well, quite frankly, there's not a lot that isn't weird about me. I'm slightly bonkers. But different about me, I grew up in Germany, so I've been fortunate to live, a great life in a different country.
Fantastic. And how long have you been back here then?
Oh,
some years.
Years now.
Yeah.
But I go back quite a bit.
Yeah. So very quickly then, what's your view of the way that they're dealing with COVID? Because they put on a pedestal Germany, aren't they? As somebody that's dealing with it well.
Don't mess about. They sort stuff out. They do. They don't mess about like we do.
Yeah. I spent a bit of time over there myself, so I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, and quite relatively compliant, I guess, compared with us.
They're quite a stubborn race. They'll stand up if they think they're not getting their own way.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, then. So obviously, I would encourage you all maybe to look each other up on LinkedIn. and connect with each other on LinkedIn. You can do it now or obviously later. Make a jot down of people's names, and then you're connected. But that's wonderful. And Timeless Gardens, I think that's a very interesting. That
it's timeless like the herb.
It's timeless like the herb.
Yes, THYME.
Now you see, that's very clever. Well, I'm glad you told me. Right, fantastic. Right, I'll crack on because some people get all a bit irritated if I'm too chatty with people because they go, "Can you get on with it, please?" You know, that impatient thing, which I get because I'm like that myself. So, Sarfraz, have I got that right? Sarfraz,
Yes.
Great. Okay, mate. Okay, introduce yourself, sir.
No problem. My name's Sarfraz Rafiq. I'm a lorry driver. I've been driving for about 14 years now, and I'm just trying to open my own haulage company up.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is a bit daunting at this time with
Of
COVID,
course it
but
is.
fingers crossed.
Of course it is. Do you know what? It's daunting for anybody to start their own business. Anybody that has, and obviously I have done it a few times. It is not easy and it's very daunting, but it's challenging and you learn an awful lot. That's for certain. And what I would say to you is you learn as much about what people made mistakes, the mistakes people made. You can learn as much from that as you can from people's success stories.
That's true. That's true.
So what sort of timescales are you on in terms of the business?
Hopefully, trying to get it done before Christmas so I can get the Christmas, the rush in. Just need to get a lorry and a trailer and hopefully get going, to be honest with you.
And I guess networks and contacts, really important for that.
Yeah, that's a bit now of trying to getting away from driving, sat behind a wheel driving and actually getting to the office and to the office based and, you know, the stuff that you don't do as a lorry driver, which is it's a steep curve. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. Brilliant. Okay. Thanks, mate. Thanks for that. Debbie, you're next on my screen.
Hello, everybody. Hi. So my name's Debbie Bullock, and I am usually from Morecambe. I'm usually in Morecambe. That's where I'm based. And I am in the process of setting up my own business as a HR consultant. So unfortunately made redundant earlier on in COVID. And so that's the second time in my life I've been made redundant. So I'm at the stage now where I don't want to go through that again. And I've decided to set up myself, hopefully supporting local, especially because of the times and where we are now and what's going on, supporting small to medium businesses where they don't have the luxury of perhaps having in-house personnel, HR training, and haven't got them to turn to. But hopefully from a consultancy basis, they can turn to me and I can, as far cheaper from a business point of view than having someone as an employee that can work with me, and I can support them and do their HR stuff for them. Brilliant. Like everyone will be saying, and Sarfraz has just said, it is daunting. Overwhelming is a word that's been in my head for a while. I am learning loads. I just need a few more clients. That's where I am at the minute.
If it helps, that's something that I hear 1,000 times a day and have been hearing it for 25 years. So it is. If you ask people generally, where are you at with the business? A lot of people will say, well, I just need more clients. So it's not uncommon. Okay. That probably doesn't help, but it's not uncommon.
No, thanks. I'm learning lots of things about media, social media and IT skills and updating my LinkedIn profile. So I'm learning loads of stuff like that. I would just like 1 or 2 more clients at the minute.
Yeah, well, I mean, LinkedIn has just exploded for businesses, business to business. It's exploded in the last 2 or 3 years, I would say. It was a bit of a side hustle. It was a bit of a sideline social media for a lot of people, but it's become a lot more mainstream now. So that's great. Thanks for that then, Debbie. Nice to have you
No
on.
problem. Thank you.
Claire, you're next.
Hi, I'm Claire Buckle and I run Ability Consultancy, and it's a equality, diversity, specialising in disability awareness, education and training, and we deliver equality and diversity sessions for businesses, the and the like education sector and third sector organisations, and one kind of weird thing about actually me or different is I volunteer for guide dogs and regularly have guide dog puppies to stay and in my house. That's a bit weird.
Right. So I'm going to make a really silly statement now. You're a dog lover then?
Yeah, and I haven't got time to have actually one the whole time, so I just get them for weeks and then I just send them back. It's really quite good.
Brilliant. How's COVID impacted your business then? Has it made any difference at all, or is it basically business as usual?
No, so because I delivered face to face pre-COVID, because we have disability simulation equipment, so I actually get everyone to experience some kind of disability, and they have to learn and they have to try little tasks. So obviously that stopped. So I am after what 6 actually months of hard graft. I am in the very final stages of moving all of my courses and online. So I built them around built them around a like online platform, and during COVID I have actually worked with Lancaster Uni, and they have actually made me a interactive disability awareness training app as well. So we're going down that route a bit more.
Fantastic. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? The whole adapting thing. I mean,
It's been so hard.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the conversations I'm having with virtually all clients, is about adapting to the markets. And I won't go on about it now, but I might mention it later if I've got time. But I've got a client who's a great example of adapting. And I won't mention it now because people, as I say, get a bit fed up if I don't crack on with the content. But I will mention it probably before the end. So thanks for that, Claire. Yeah, absolutely adapting online. Can you do more stuff online? Obviously, coaching, consultancy, and everything else is all kind of virtually moved online. I joke to people because I've been using Zoom for quite a long time for doing video interviews. And when I used to talk about Zoom up until about 7 months ago, people thought I was talking about an ice lolly. So now everybody knows what it means, don't they? Fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Claire. Okay, Rachel Shaw. Hi, Rachel.
Hello, good morning. So yeah, I'm Rachel Shaw. Up until about 2.5 months ago, I was working in travel. I've worked in travel for 10 years as a commercial analyst, pricing analyst, revenue management, that side of things. So very data driven. I decided to leave which actually was nothing to do with COVID, which everyone just assumes that I was made redundant or something because the travel industry has taken an absolute hammering. But I had inadvertently climbed the corporate ladder quite quickly in my early 30s, and exactly like you, Phil, I just was sort of completely disillusioned by the politics and the fact that you could tell everybody the right things to do and nobody would listen, and they'd be like, yeah, but do the complete opposite. So and I think I was heading for burnout, so I decided to leave, and I've now set up myself as a business consultant focused on strategy and operational efficiencies, but I'm really sort of trying to carve out a niche by only working with ethical and eco-friendly and sustainable businesses, just because I think that for those very small businesses, they need affordable support and they need somebody who understands their values and their ethos, and that's kind of where I sit. So, you know, I'm not in it for the money, I'm in it for the impact that we can make on the environment.
And
yeah,
making
so
a difference.
kind of yeah, exactly. Like if I could do it for free, well, I would. So
yeah, get the lottery ticket on Saturday. You never know.
Yeah, maybe. A strange thing or a different thing about me is I share my working space with 2 rabbits, so sometimes you'll see me like this, it's because they're pulling up the carpet or they're biting my toes or something like that.
Fantastic. Love that. That's brilliant. Yeah, you might want to look up somebody called Fran MacArthur, MacArthur, I think. Fran, Fran.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you search her on LinkedIn. Fran is a consultant and a coach who I've known for quite some years. And she's very much has the same approach to you in that it's about, you know, ethical businesses, and she's massively into the green thing.
Perfect,
that's just my typical way of describing it, which is not patronizing.
The green thing. Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, she's massively into the green thing, and I'm sure she'd be great to have a chat with, because she's been in the same boat as you in that whole kind of, okay, well, if I do this, I want to do this, but then am I going to have to turn away clients that are good business because they're not in that category?
Yeah.
So
well,
quite
great,
quite a dichotomy, but I think you'll find she's a lovely lady as well. I think you'll find that really useful. And if you mention me, she won't run for the hills. If you mention me, then that'll be fine. Great. Okay. Thank you for that. No, you're very welcome. Right. Okay. So I've had a bit of a move around here now. Violet. Hi, Violet. And you know what? You're not getting away with it either, sir. We need to know a bit about you as well. Hiya, mate. Good to see you. Okay, Violet. Fire away.
Yes. My name is Violet. Violeta, actually, I came from Poland, and I'm here today with my partner and boyfriend. His name is Mosen, and we are a startup company. We will be producing like organic herbal teas with different like health properties. And like I said, we are just starting up, so we're trying to build up the company from the scratch. Anything you want to add?
Well, hi everybody, my name is Mohsen, and I'm originally from Iran, moved to the UK about 13 years ago, and I've been working for myself since, well, I become financially independent at the age of 15. Like you feel, I was involved in too many times in politics and reading books and different books, because we grew up in kind of society. Just the politics is part of our daily life. And I've decided to change my habit to reading different books. And I was quite lucky to not personally meet in person. I mean, the guys died about 2002. His name was Jim Rohn, and he had a great impact in my life. And by listening to his seminars and the book he was introducing, I become like a totally different person.
Wow.
I put aside unimportant stuff in my life, and unfortunately, during that COVID, I got fired. I didn't get redundant, but I got fired because those things are weird about me, because I'm kind of person who doesn't like to obey is not the appropriate word, because if I hear something useful, I listen to. But I'm type of person, no one could force me to do something or something I don't like. And it was quite become quite challenging because for me, I was a qualified joiner back home for about 20 years. I was self-employed joiner. I become a entrepreneur back home from like a 1 liter motorbike. I become like a workshop owner, a showroom owner, quite successful business person. And when I come here, I got another qualification in this country. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a job from that and become a lorry driver like Sarfaraz. And I worked for a firm for about 10 months. I got fired, and I decided to start in a company that because my great granddad, he was a tea merchant, and it's quite useful knowledge about the herbal teas in my family has been intact, to be honest. And I was recommended by my sister. She was saying that you should do this because we've got a farm back home. We plant saffron, all different herbs and stuff. I decided to start in a company. Another weird things about me, I'll fall down from sky about too many times. As people saying, how could you survive? I don't know, because I'm too enthusiastic. I don't know, just too energetic.
Your resilience.
Yeah, well, I would say so.
And that is the word I tend to use all the time. I think positivity, and I get it, and I always get into trouble sometimes when I say about this. You need to be positive, of course you do, but at the moment in particular, you need to be resilient. You need to be able to get knocked down. And as I said, I've interviewed all these entrepreneurs as over the years, and that is the one key thing you find with them is they go bankrupt, they get fired, they get no's, they get doors shut in the face, but they get up again and they go again, they get up again and they go again. And that is one of the key elements, if you like, within anybody that succeeds. I'd like to have a chat with you actually off this session at some point. So I'll make a note and I'll contact you off this, because I'm doing something that I'd be interested in getting your input into, which as I say, I might mention at the end, but I haven't got time now, but let's pick up again, because I think there's some interesting stuff there.
Excellent.
No worries. Thank you. Okay, Roger.
Hello.
Hello, Roger. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, thank you. So my name's Roger Dinabriga. I'll probably start off with a weird thing first, because everyone's looking at the surname thinking, where's that from?
Yeah, true.
So it's Portuguese. So my mum and dad are Portuguese. They emigrated over here from sunny island of Madeira. And my mum's actually just there at the minute. She flew yesterday. So I can speak Portuguese and understand it to a point, obviously enough to order a coffee and cake if I'm over there. So I'm here sort of on behalf of my wife, I suppose. My wife's currently out. She runs a small company called Magical Story Jars. And it's a concept that came about with our 2 children. So Magical Story Jars it's a plastic jar, I suppose, made up of story prompts. So you have 39 cards in a jar, made up of characters, settings and plots. And what you do is you make an imaginary story with those cards. So as a family, you can do that at bedtime. You can have use them as acting prompts, writing prompts. So my wife is currently out at the minute, just photography and using with a colleague, making sort of the next batch of product, I suppose, and to put on the website ready for launch. So I'm currently on furlough at the minute. My background is sports and leisure, so I've worked quite high up in a national governing body, pretty similar to Rachel, and so there's another lady in that I got quite high up. And then I had to make a personal decision, really. I wasn't enjoying the role that I was doing. A lot of politics, especially in football, is where I was from. And yeah, I decided to take a step back. I had a young family at the time, traveling a lot around the country. It just wasn't for me. So yeah, so the time that I've got now, I'm trying to use to the best of my ability and help expand the business for my wife, really, and see where we go with it.
Brilliant. Do you know what, Roger? I'm sure I've met your wife, actually. I did actually run a Boost workshop about content marketing about 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was. and I'm sure she was on that course because obviously as a concept it sticks in my mind, but also the name sticks in my mind. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I have met your wife, and she's been on one of my courses.
Beth Elizabeth. Unfortunately, say she would have been here today, but
yeah. I thought you were going to say, yeah, but she knew you were running it, so she was not going to bother coming on it.
Not quite.
Right. Okay. Great. I think that's everybody introduced. Thank you for that. And I know it took a little bit of time, but I think it's important for you to all share some of your stories. Paul, you're still on mute, but I'm assuming that you've chosen to be on mute, or you've got technical challenges. So I'll assume that, or you're involved with winning pitch, whatever. So I'm not being rude. I'll just assume that you're not going to contribute to this particular bit. Right. Fantastic. So fascinating, isn't it? How many of us are saying got fed up of the politics, got fed up of corporate life, got fed up of being told what to do? Quite common, I can assure you. Right. Let's crack on. So I'm going to talk about the digital media revolution now. The digital media revolution of the last few years is absolutely staggering, to be honest. And I've heard it talked about in terms of being, making the industrial revolution of the 1800s look like an historical hiccup in comparison. And I think that's probably true. It's quite staggering how quickly video and I remember a guy saying to me when I was in Thomas Cook, and I was asking him about could I show some videos in the branch network, in the Thomas Cook branch network to customers. And I remember him saying to me, oh, you've got no chance, Phil, that the bandwidth is the pipes, or as he called it, the pipes are not wide enough. They can't handle video data. So that's never going to be possible. and now here we are all these years later, and of course people have got a terabyte pipes in that back bedroom. It's quite staggering really how things have changed. So obviously this has had massive impact on marketing and promotion in terms of how we market, how we promote, the opportunities that are available to us. Does anybody have any thoughts quickly on how they think it's impacted on marketing and promotion, the fact now we've got all this digital means of communication? You're probably sussed out now, I'm not doing all the talking. So anybody got any thoughts on that?
It's certainly for sure everything social and digital has meant that you don't have the capacity, like something really needs to stand out before it'll stick in your brain, because we're just consuming probably 20 times as many imagery and everything else as you would have done like 10 years ago. So it's got to really have impact. Yeah,
that's absolutely right. When I started talking about this originally, which as I say was about 2004, I think, when I started to be asked to do talks at conferences and stuff. And you could probably cover off digital media in half an hour. And now it's like, what the heck do you leave out? And of course, it's all become very possible and very accessible to every single one of us as well, which creates as many challenges as it does opportunities, but we'll come across that a little bit later. So is anybody familiar with this term, content marketing? Oh, this is great.
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
This is great. It means you actually learn something. This is something for the basket. So at the very least, you'll have one thing in the basket by the time you get to the end. Right. Content marketing. Okay, I've got a little video clip to show you, which summarizes it. And then we'll watch the video clip, and then we'll just have a chat about it. Okay, so I know that was rushed and a bit quick, but what would you say the term content actually means in this context?
It means that you provide the information for your customer and influence the decisions by that information.
That's right. That's right. So we're surrounded, aren't we, by content every day in our media, in our lives. So content is very much about television programs are content, newspaper articles are content, podcasts are content, images, photographic images are content, vlogs are content. What we're doing now, a webinar, is content. Magazine articles is content. So all the stuff that we produce and we consume, either online or on television or on radio, is known as content. Does that make sense to people? If I don't hear a no, I'll assume it does, because you don't need to unmute yourself every 5 seconds. Sorry, there we go. Right, so just have a quick read of that. And this is I then want to just talk a little bit about what that actually means without all the gobbledygook. Okay, so basically what we've got here is we're using content to market and promote our businesses. And if you think about it, historically in the past, it was all about advertising, wasn't it? It's all about advertising. So in order to promote our business, we'd go and put a billboard up that just said, buy my stuff, it's great. Yeah. And we'd have things in magazines, which again, with pretty pictures and everything, but it was all about sales. It was all about buy my stuff, it's great. Buy me, I'm great. Buy my stuff, I'm great. So what content marketing is it's producing your own content, and content is more valuable to people than adverts. Okay. And what happens is if you produce content, or when you produce content and you make that available to people via social media, via YouTube, via LinkedIn, if it's valuable to people, there's more chance that they'll take notice of it. Okay. So it's the difference of me saying, here's 3 ways that I think you could improve the attention you get on your videos. That is something that might be useful and valuable to people, in which compared with, do you want to buy my services to produce videos for you? So what you're doing is you're producing content to engage and get attention and get engagement. What do you think engagement means in this context?
People move through into your website or sign up to your newsletter or interact with you in some way.
That's right. That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it, Rachel. It's basically, we need to get the attention of people in the first place. And oh boy, is that easy to say and not easy to do. Because as Rachel mentioned earlier, we are bombarded with a billion different bits of content and adverts and self-promotion every single hour of every single day. Okay. But what I always say to people is, if you're not going to use content to help develop, engage, and get attention from people, that's fine. But what are you going to do instead? You know, and if there's something else you think you can do instead, then you should do that. But all the research shows that content and content distribution is a more effective way of getting people's attention and getting people's engagement. So that's the, if you like, the context of it. But the difference with content is what you're doing is you're basically, you know how boxers, this is the best way I can describe it. You know how boxers, when they're in the ring, they kind of jab, 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 and then they swing the right hook, don't they? Well, this is a very similar process, because what you're doing is by giving out content and giving out value and getting people's attention and getting their engagement, you're jabbing. And it means that when you swing the right hook, which is the advert bit or the self-promotion bit or the product promotion bit, you've softened them up a little bit. They know you a bit better. So if you can imagine, if I do a range of different videos about video marketing, the chances are that when I then say, if anybody, you know, weeks later, this could be via email, by the way, of course, as well, I might say, okay, you may want to come on. We're doing a 1-hour webinar about video marketing. It's only £29. If you want to sign up, click on the link. You've already been softened up a little bit because you've got to know, like, and trust me a bit more as a result of that content I've been providing. Does that make sense? But the objective at the end of the day will always be the same. It's about having profitable customer action. And everybody knows at the heart of it in business that at the heart of it, you're not doing it for the good of your health. You might want to make a difference and you might have won the lottery like Rachel's going to do on Saturday. But the truth is that most people understand that they're being sold to. And they don't mind being sold to, except when it's in your face, or nobody's made the effort to get to know you. Nobody's made the effort to get to know a bit about what you're about. So a great example of it is LinkedIn. The cold message on LinkedIn. Hi, you don't know. I hope you're having a great day. No, you don't care whether I'm having a great day or not. You don't know who I am. Just thought you might be interested in buying my course. Just thought you might be interested in buying my services. I mean, that's a slight exaggeration, but that is what people do. And it winds most of us up because they've not made any effort. And in business, people will respect you if you've just made the effort to get to know them first and get to know their exact needs first. And it's very easy to say, I'm the first to admit it, when we've got bills to pay, but we've got to show some patience, because if you swing that right hook too soon, they're not ready for it. You've not jabbed at them. You've not softened them up a little bit, and you throw the right hook. It's like, whoa, you don't even know who I am and you're trying to sell me stuff. Stop it. Don't like it. So it's about that thing about attracting and acquiring and engaging. And you'll notice as well on that statement there, clearly defined and understood target audience. So my advice to you is, before you start producing content, and we'll start talking about some ideas of what that might look like in a minute, but before you do that, start off by understanding who your target audience is and what exactly is their pain that you can solve. Because people will pay for pain that you can solve, taking away their pain. In fact, actually, there is some statistics that show that 80% of motivation comes from getting away from pain as opposed to getting something positive. Okay. So on that basis, if you can understand their pain, and when I say understand, I mean really understand their pain, then there's a very strong possibility that they'll buy from you if they know, like, and trust you.
I just have a question, sorry, Phil.
Of course, 100%.
From a service-based business perspective, where there's not really any reason that your clients, in effect, would want to follow you until, they know who you are, then they have a business page themselves. It's not like they're going out and looking for something that they, that my services, for example, they don't really probably, a lot of them don't realize that they need my help until I start to like unpick what their pain points are. It's hard to how do you almost serve content to these sorts of people without asking them to engage with you in the first place? And it's kind of like cart before the horse, isn't it? Like, why would they engage with you unless you knew them? And that's the thing I'm finding.
It is. There's a few answers to this, but the first one I would say is that it is about reaching out. And I've got a number of clients who do offer and do 15-minute free Zoom calls. You know, and it's almost like it's what I said at the start, really, Rachel. It's about almost like reaching out for help. And actually, people like to help people. And funnily enough, if you go out and you say, for example, that you're doing some research and you just need a few answers to help you produce this research, they're more likely to engage with you because you're not actually trying to sell them something. People run for the hills usually when you're trying to sell them something. Okay.
That's how I started, actually. But then do you think just carrying on that even when it's not a new business? Because that's the first thing I did. But then I felt like once I got to the point where I'd launched, maybe it's not that relevant. But if you suggest that you just carry on doing that all the way through and just say, oh, I'm just still doing a little bit more research, or, well, they don't know how long you've been running.
Exactly. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. They don't know how long you've been running. They don't know. It could be just, I mean, it's like universities do research every single week of every single year, and they've been up and running for 200 years in some cases. So it can be a project that you're doing. So it doesn't have to be research for my business. It could be I'm just doing a mini project and I just need a little bit of input. So if anybody could answer me a couple of questions, if you wouldn't mind, I'd be really, really, really grateful. And it goes back to what I said before, really, Rachel. If you don't ask, you don't get. You know, and I had a lot of people ultimately on that that I interviewed for that channel, and I can honestly tell you that I didn't pay anybody, and people are gobsmacked that I didn't. And I don't say that as that, oh, I didn't pay any. I'm not trying to show off. The reality is that I was just polite and I was just respectful of their time. And I said to them, if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. So they would say, well, when you put the interview up, would you mind just putting a link to a new book that I've got coming out? Reciprocation. Yeah. Also then, but in any business, you've got to understand what the pains are. So in content terms, it might be that you do a small video, and I say we'll come on to the content types in a minute, but it might be that you do a small video that says the three key pains that you will have when you are doing X, Y, Z. The 3 key reasons why X, Y, Z. And people like those, and you'll see those a lot, won't you? Like, it might be with what Violet's doing with the herbal teas. It might be the 5 reasons why your life will be the most happiest it's ever been by drinking this tea. Now, of course, it's tongue in cheek. It's a little bit using a bit of humor. But you're starting to educate people about what you do. It's basically this. You're educating people about what you do and why you do it and why they need it. But it's subtle. Now, obviously, when I'm working with clients, you tend to go into a lot more detail on that. And there's numerous different things that you can do. But you've got to just find the ways. You've got to find the route in that's going to tickle their fancy, as we say in the UK sometimes. What's going to tickle their fancy? What's going to just get them to stop in their tracks? What pain have they got? And it doesn't always have to be pain. It can be an aspiration. So if you talk about, for example, helping businesses to grow, then that's an aspiration. So I might go out and do a video that says, you know, after all these years of doing these video interviews, here's the 5 things that I've noticed that businesses need to do to grow. I'm not saying come and buy my stuff. See the difference? So it basically means doing a bit more work. And as I say, but I know certainly I've got a client who does provides baby colic help for mothers, new mothers who've got colic. She's called Colic SOS. That's not her name. She's called Becky Palmer. And she's been starting to develop some of this content stuff around podcasts. And she's been doing what I've just been saying now. She's been reaching out to companies and magazines and such like, and online things that provide stuff for babies. And she's asking, can I provide some content for you in order to help promote myself, but also it will help you in terms of the content for your magazine. And magazines and online and everything else, they're desperate for content. So think about what, you know, one of the things I often say to people is, where does your target market spend their time? So, you know, think about that. Where do the people you want to buy your stuff, whether it's service or whether it's product, where do they spend their time? And that's particularly relevant, of course, when you get into social media, because certain social media platforms are significantly better for certain target audiences. So if we had, let's say we had a new product that was trainers for girls between 12 and 15, where might you put your content out if that's what you were selling? Anybody got any ideas on that or any thoughts on that?
Probably Instagram.
Oh, is that you, Paul?
Yes, just reappeared. Thank you for your patience, Phil.
That's all right. That's all right, mate. I thought I've really insulted him. He's not having any of this.
You probably thought I was a scary guy just kind of watching from a distance. No,
Oh, yeah, a lurker, they call him.
Something happened just when you went live that I had to deal with of a personal nature. So apologies for having to vanish, but I've returned.
It's no problem. I now know you don't hate me, so I'm okay. I'm fine.
You've got too much of a friendly face, Phil. That couldn't be possible.
Great. Okay. So was it you that said that, Paul, then, when I asked that question?
It was indeed, yeah. Forgive me for that.
No, it's okay. So, yeah. So when it comes to 14 to 16-year-old girls, the place where you would want to be putting your content out right now at this point in time on 29th of September, 2020, whatever it is TikTok. Because TikTok is where all the 12 to 14-year-old girls are spending their time. That makes sense. Now, in terms of a lot of what we do, it may well be, for example, that LinkedIn is going to be where people are spending their time. Facebook. I have a client that does escape rooms in Stockport, and we do some advertising for them on and content development for them on Facebook, and Facebook works perfect for their market. And what's interesting about social media in this context is that over time, social media platforms mature. So people can't believe it sometimes when I say this, but at one time, Facebook was the place where you would find 14 to 16-year-old girls spending their time. And then, of course, these platforms mature. And then, you know, and then the youngsters then go, oh, blimey, my mum's on this now. My dad's on this now. This ain't cool anymore. And then they go off to the next shiny object, which at the time, a few years ago, was Instagram. Oh, no, I'm not on Facebook. That's for my mum. You know, and then, of course, what happens is Instagram then matures and Instagram's not cool anymore. So what? Oh, no, I'm on Snapchat. And I love Snapchat because my mum and dad don't understand how it works. So I'm on Snapchat. So do the research and you know, there's this amazing, two amazing tools that are fascinatingly useful. One's called Google, and another's called YouTube. And if you do searches on them about this stuff, you will find so much stuff. In 20,000 lifetimes, you wouldn't be able to consume it all. So when it comes to target audiences, just search on Google, you know, what's the best target audience for this? What's the average age of people on this particular platform? You've got to do the research. You've got to dig in. You've got to find that out. Does that answer that, Rachel? Or because I went on a bit there.
Yep, and more. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So you get the idea. As I said at the start, you'll not be an expert by the end of this session, I'm afraid. But that's the main part of it. And so the point I'm making, obviously, hopefully you can see this, is think about how you can produce content to get people to engage with you and get attention from people that's subtle selling. Because you're selling, but you're using it to develop relationships, not to sell. Now, in some cases, you can swing a right hook a bit quicker. So in consumer, business to consumer, which is arguably what Violet and her other half are doing, with teas, for example, it is okay to be maybe a little bit quicker because people know what a herbal tea is. So what you've got to do then is produce content that actually means that they choose to buy their herbal teas from you. And people still buy from people. Despite the digital age, despite all the technology, people still buy from people. So content and internet content allows you to put yourself across as you, the person. And there's this, I mentioned it earlier very quickly. It's about building know, like, and trust. So the people have to know you, like you, and trust you before they'll buy from you. Now, of course, that's not always the person. If you're a big company, you have to know, like, and trust the brand. So if it's, I don't know, if it's, you know, I don't know, Red Bull, for the sake of argument, you're not trying, the CEO of Red Bull's not trying to build a personal relationship with you, but you still have to know, like, and trust the brand. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. I'm going to crack on. Otherwise, I know I'm going to run out of time. But I always do. Just so you know, I always run out of time. Never, ever don't run out of time. One of my faults. Sorry, I'm a bad person. Right. Okay. So what we've seen then is something called the video revolution. We've seen amazing changes in video, the amazing ways that we can produce video, and of course, it's not always just about having expensive equipment like this, but I've got expensive equipment like this because Geeky Media is part of what we do. So we produce this stuff, and therefore, but you know what? You've all got video equipment in your pocket. And the fascinating thing is that the video quality on here, when you're starting out, isn't that much worse than that. Trying to remember when than that. Yeah. Now then, so why do people not do video? And I'll tell you this, and you can jot this down if you like. There are 5 reasons why people tend not to do video. The first is, well, there's 5 fears. There's 5 fears going on. The first fear is scopophobia. Scopophobia. And scopophobia is the fear of being on camera. Anybody can relate to that?
Just a bit.
Yeah, it's okay. It's normal. You know, it's that kind of, oh my God, take that away, take that camera away. I've got big ears. You can't see I've got bigger ears, but I have. But or I've got all that bald head. Oh my God, it's shining. And all that stuff that goes on. And our little voice in our heads that goes on. So scopophobia is the fear of being on camera. The second one is phonophobia. And phonophobia is the fear of hearing your own voice. And some of you, if not all of you, can maybe relate to this. And you hear your own voice and you're freaking out. My wife has got phonophobia, because when you hear your voice playing back on a computer or on a phone or whatever, it doesn't sound like you. So it sounds unfamiliar. So therefore you fear it because you don't like the sound of your own voice. And you assume, because that little voice in your head is saying, you know what? People think your voice is silly. The truth is they don't. It's in your head. It's your own self-talk. Yeah. So phonophobia is the second one. It's actually the fear of loud noises as well, as it happens. The third one is glossophobia, and that's the fear of any kind of public speaking. So, you know, if somebody asked you to do a talk at school back in those days, or somebody at work says, can you just do a quick talk to the team about the project you've been doing? That's when glossophobia kicks in. Or can you come and talk at our conference, and you know you'd rather eat your shoes than stand up and do a conference speech? That's glossophobia. The third one is social phobia. Sorry, the fourth one is social phobia. And social phobia is the fear of being judged. So we see this a lot, don't we, with teenagers and youngsters. They love being on social media, but they fear of being judged because of all the trolling and the bullying and everything else. So their fear of being judged. And again, it's the little voice in the head saying, I'll look stupid. People will think I don't know what I'm talking about. People will think I'm cocky because I'm talking about my business and I've got some knowledge. People will think I'm cocky. People will think I'm arrogant. And the little voice is going to be screaming in your ear all the time. And in some people, that voice is louder than others. And then the fifth one is just simply technophobia, the fear of the buttons. Oh, what if I press the wrong button? What happens if I'm in a silhouette because I get the wrong angle? It's not as, you know, that's the classic. Oh, I saw a video on LinkedIn and this mine doesn't look anything like his or hers. So that's technophobia. So you've got scopophobia, phonophobia, glossophobia, social phobia, and technophobia. And all those things are going on. So people that can overcome those will have got a major opportunity, because despite the video revolution, there's a lot of people don't and struggle to overcome those. So they put it off. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next month. I'll do it after summer. I'll do it when the kids are back at school. And they just keep putting off and putting off and putting off. And the reason that's good news is because producing videos is not actually therefore that crowded, because there's so many people putting it off and fearful of it. But if you can overcome it, it gives you an advantage. If that makes sense. And the best way to overcome all these things is the P word. Practice, 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 practice. So in other words, practice producing the videos. You don't have to put them live. Just keep practicing. Do 60 on your phone, or if you've got a small camera, or if you're really geeky and nerdy like me, you get bigger cameras, but just practice doing it. And it's amazing because when you practice doing it, once you've done it the 25th time, it just feels easier. It feels more comfortable. And then eventually you might just do one and you think, actually, that was really good. And then you think about whether you're ready to upload it. Unfortunately, I've not got any magic pixie dust that gets rid of those phobias in 2 seconds. There's no pill you can take that I'm aware of anyway. If there is one, I'll buy shares in it if you know about it. Obviously, you can have things like, if it's really bad, you can get into hypnotherapy and stuff like that. But most people don't need that. And then, of course, it's worth mentioning at this next stage, the audio revolution. And this is the good news. If you've got scopophobia and it's too horrendous for you to put yourself on camera, the great news is you can still do a podcast. You can still do audio recordings. And that means then you've not got the worry of the camera. So you just do a recording of your voice, and that's in effect what a podcast is. Has anybody listened to podcasts or produced any podcasts over the last year or two?
I listen to a lot and have a friend who creates them, but I've never made my own.
Yeah, exactly. So again, this is a strange thing. The word podcast hardly existed 2 years ago, and now it is in the mainstream. But for those that don't know, a podcast is basically just an audio recording of you talking. That's what a podcast is. And there's all sorts of different types of podcasts. You can do interviews with people. You can record yourself outside doing something. If you've got a product that has got noise attached to it, you can actually do things like. So I know a guy who does a podcast, who does a radio show, and he actually does the podcast. And he includes music on his. So there's all sorts of different things you can do, and it depends obviously on the business that you're in and what you're selling and what you're offering. So podcasts, as I said, is one area. I'm going to show a few of these really quickly, but this is you'll be able to hear this because this is a podcast that I produced for a company called NWEG, which is Northwest Employee Engagement Group. Don't ask me to say it again. And this is the sort of thing that we did.
That we empower people to have a choice to work in the way that's best for them. So if you've got a job that requires you to be head down in a spreadsheet, you're doing some numbers or whatever, then clearly you're going to want some solace. And it's giving people the empowerment to go, do you know what? For the job in hand today, that's what I want to do. That said, and over any period of time, and of course this is where it gets a little bit tricky because everybody's different, is we do need to come together as teams. We need to communicate effectively. Otherwise, you do become an individual work.
Yeah, so we have quite a few angles that we come from, really. Some of it obviously is on the job training. We run workshops as well. For us, the blended learning is the key.
So you can see that's a podcast that we recorded over at Cotton Traders, couldn't think of the word then, Cotton Traders over in Altrincham. So podcasts are really easy to do. And the other great benefit of podcasts, audio podcasts, is that you don't have to worry about light and all that those extra technical things, cameras, angles, all that kind of thing. So podcasts and audio is a great place to start. And this is a picture there of the people on the podcast that I was just talking about doing the recording. So vlogs, video logs, this is something that's quite new. But this is basically a video diary of what's going on in your life or your business. So here's a very quick example of a vlog I do, which is called the Coronavirus Vlog. The clue's in the title. And it's basically where I pontificate about the coronavirus and the impact it's having on me. And before I just play this clip, you notice the faux pas of where I was recording it, bearing in mind I'm talking about coronavirus. And I'm also going to try and focus a lot more on being ready, getting ready for the sunrise, as I call it. Because there will come a time when we will be out of this. And as I said before on this vlog, when we come out of it, the people that will prosper will be those that have used the time to get ready for when we come out the other side. So they'll all have everything ready to go when we will come out the other side, which hopefully will be them less than 3 or 4 months. But of course, it'll be interesting to see because okay, so you get the idea. Yeah, as you probably might have spotted, that was in a graveyard, which is rather unfortunate, bearing in mind the topic. But that's just a way of describing and sharing with people what you're doing, what you're up to. And again, like I say, find out more by just going onto Google about vlogging and you'll find loads of examples. And yes, it's true, YouTubers are vloggers. And if you've heard the rumours that some of them make about 3 million quid a week, they're not just rumours. It's absolutely true based on the volume of views on YouTube, which is an industry in itself nowadays. So the next area is interviews. Interviews are a great way to get started because it's not all about you. So you can produce audio interviews like we just showed you there a second ago. You can do video interviews, which is now what you can do online. And that's the great thing of the Zoom revolution, is you can now do those interviews online. So think about people that you could interview that might be able to add some value to what you do. So for example, you, Debbie, could do an interview with somebody who was having some real HR challenges in their business. You know, just talk to us about some of the challenges you've had and how you've dealt with those challenges. Just having a quick look for a couple of examples. Sarfraz, you could do some interviews with people who are truck drivers. Have they got stories that they could tell where people could listen to or watch the stories about? Can't even start to imagine some of the stories that truck drivers must have. So, you know, it can be like something like the story of the truck driver, or the trucking vlogging, or whatever it might be. So there's loads of different examples. Sorry?
Trucking nightmares.
There you go. Oh, love it. Oh, you got to do that. That's it. That's the one you have to do. That's the one you have to do. Trucking nightmares. Yeah. Absolutely love it. You see. So you obviously need to think about it and plan it, but you can imagine that is going to get people's attention and get people's engagement, something like that. And the general rule of thumb is wherever you can tell stories in your content, do. I'll repeat that. Wherever you can tell stories in your content, do. Because stories adhere to the mind. People love stories. Despite the digital age, despite thousands of years of development, we're still in that kind of Aesop arena where we love a good story, which is why we still watch soap operas in our millions and all the rest of it. We love a story. And the great thing about interviews is you're actually telling somebody else's story, because the person you're interviewing, but you're seen as the person that's at the front of that. So probably not a great example because people don't like him very much, but Piers Morgan's life stories, it's the guest, but it gets Piers Morgan an awful lot of profile. Yeah. So, you know, something like the herbal teas, Violet, think about the people, the suppliers of the herbal teas. You know, you were talking about earlier about about where the tea comes from. You know, that's wonderful storytelling, where it came from, how it came to be, what it takes to actually get those leaves, you know, that people have to toil on their hands and knees for 3 hours to get the leaves. The stories are what people will relate to. So what you're doing with your teas is perfect for content marketing. Okay. So here's a quick example, and I am going to make this very, very quick because I'm running out of time as always. But here's an example of an interview that we did for a client, GM Business Connect, a business magazine in Trafford Park, and this is an interview that we filmed for them.
Edwina Curry, thank you very much for doing this podcast. Edwina Curry, you're writer, broadcaster, politician, celebrity speaker and businesswoman. Please, Edwina, that's well and great. Tell me how you got here.
Well, it's about 30 years since I registered for VAT. Right. 1989. I've been a Member of Parliament, a local councillor helping to run the City of Birmingham, and then I was a government minister, and as I think most people know, at the end of 1988 much of that came to an end with the issue of salmonella in eggs.
So you get the idea. And with, as I said, I've probably done about 600 interviews now over the years with many people, and they're a wonderful content option, especially if you don't like being center stage, because the focus is on the guest. If that makes sense. Yeah. So here's the question then, just in terms of you to ponder: who could you interview that would be relevant to the product or service that you provide, that could be of value to your target audience? Who could you interview that would be relevant to your target audience and be valuable to people? And it's very rare. I've not come across anything yet where you can't develop content in audio, video, text form, and so on. I've never come across a product or service where it's not relevant. I've been doing this a few years. There's always a relevance in everything. You just have to come up with it and think about it and come up with the ideas. Okay, very quickly then. So solo recordings are just a camera. So solo recording is where I'm looking down the camera and I'm saying, thanks very much for joining me today. Delighted you couldn't join me. I just wanted to quickly share my 3 top tips on how to get the best quality of video on your iPhone or your smartphone. So hopefully this is helpful. Number 1, make sure, see what I mean? So that's a solo recording down the camera. That's another content option. And very easy to do because you don't need anybody else. You don't have to get the guest. You don't have to, you just basically set up the camera or set up the phone and off you go. Voiceover slides. This is very much a voiceover slides example actually that I'm doing now, where you record the actual slides with a voiceover. So they're great for doing presentations and that kind of thing. And that's been around for quite some time. So voiceover slides is another good video option. I'm going to move on because of time. Live streams. This is a new one that's come along suddenly in the last year or two. You can now live stream. I do quite a few live streams these days. The reason why live streams are so, just checking time, the reason why live streams are so good and popular now is because you can get better engagement. Yeah. So if you do a live stream, so again, like I said a minute ago, if I'm doing I'm streaming live onto Facebook or to YouTube or to Instagram, I'm doing the same thing, but people can comment or ask questions whilst I'm delivering it. That makes sense. So it's live and it creates another level of jeopardy, live streaming. And it's very interesting because obviously, as I say, I've been doing these videos for many years, but I'm still very, very nervous when I'm doing a live stream because anything can happen, which is kind of in a way part of the fun. But, you hit that live button and you are exposed in a big way. Could a pigeon could fly in through this open door I've got here and peck my head, then it'd be on YouTube and it'd be millions of views, which does have its advantages. But the jeopardy feeling is quite scary. But at the same time, because it's so scary, very few people are doing live streaming. So therefore, remember what we said about how do you stand out? Well, one way that you can stand out is by doing something that not many other people are doing. And at the moment, live streaming is new enough to be able to be different. So on that basis, definitely look into and understand a bit more about live streaming. Maybe you can do, maybe you're ready to do it. Maybe you're not ready to do it. Who knows? But certainly find out more about it. I won't play it, but this is a live stream I did recently with a lady called Dion Taylor. And that was an interview and a live stream combined. Basically, there's also, you can do quizzes.
Hello, and welcome to our Moviescape Disney Quick Quiz. Make sure you have a pen and paper ready. I'm going to ask you 6 questions. You will have 30 seconds after I ask the questions to write down your answer.
So you get I think you get the drift, the gist. So you can do quizzes, have a bit of fun. And that's the point of that, is just have a bit of fun. Webinars, of course, we're doing one now. In case anybody wasn't sure what a webinar was, this is a webinar. And of course, you can record it, and therefore you can make it available as content to upload to your website, social media, or to YouTube, etc. Outside broadcasts, I love all outside broadcasts. Back in the day, when you could go outside, they are absolutely fantastic. I love outside broadcasts. So you can go, what I'm saying basically is make it a bit different. Do your interview in the garden, if you're allowed to have somebody around to your house, and then we've got all that. That's a whole different thing. But go out in the garden and do it in the garden. It's quite nice to hear maybe the birds twittering in the background. So outside, do stuff outside to make it a little bit different. Animation, I'm not going to go into that now because that's fairly complicated. And then, of course, you can do your own show when you get a bit more confident. So here's a very, very quick example of a show that I do with a lady by the name of Taz Thornton. And I think you'll get the gist of why it's called what it's called when you see it. Pink hair, pink head. So you can decide for yourself which you think I am. And this is the intro to that. So that's a show called Pink Hair, Pink Head that we do, and that's we just basically sit down and we're very good friends, and we just yabble and chat about business, about confidence, about Taz is very much into the holistic side of things as well, and we just chat. We just chat about stuff, and we do one about every month or so. And having your own show is a good way to build profile. And as you can see from this image here, that was just done on Zoom. So it's all available. It doesn't cost anything to use. So we recorded that, and that's an example of your own show. And that comes with time, and as you get more confident and you're prepared to push the envelope a little bit. But there's no reason why anybody on this call now couldn't have their own show. I can clearly see how every single one of you could have your own show if and when and how you're ready to do that, and your own channel. As well, of course, on YouTube or your own podcast channel as well. So I'm going to finish off here because I'm conscious of time, and we're almost up now on the hour and a half, and I know people have got real work to do. Remember, this is the point I'm trying to make, that the content that you produce, you need to think like a media company or a publishing company. So if you're a media company, like, for example, ITV, or if you're a publishing company like Hello Magazine, you have to come up with content that is going to be engaging and people are going to want to watch or listen to if you're a radio station. Yeah. So here's just a few examples of what you need to be thinking about in terms of the content that you produce. Ideally, and by the way, it doesn't have to be all these things. It can be just a few of these things or one of these things. But first of all, compelling. Ask yourself, is the content I'm producing compelling for my target audience? Maybe you can use some humor. We talked there about where Safraz was talking about the idea of the, trucking nightmares. It's great because there's a bit of humor in that. And I can imagine there's some great stories that you could capture that are really quite amusing. Now, obviously with humor, you have to be careful because you don't want to be insulting, or you don't want to be over the edge in terms of taste and all that kind of thing. But it's fine to use a bit of humor now and again because people like that. They like the authenticity of humor. Educational, perhaps. Is it educational? Does it teach people something? Inspirational. ideally, if at all possible, make the content inspirational. Now, it's not always possible. It's not every single episode you produce won't be brilliant. And I usually say this to clients, actually, that think about when you watch a box set. Some of the episodes of a box set that you watch are really engaging and you love every second of it. And you're on, excuse me, you're at the edge of your seat. And yet others that you, other episodes of that box set are just seem to be slow and they're not really going anywhere. So sometimes content will be brilliant, sometimes it'll be average, and sometimes it won't be that great. But that's normal. So every single episode, every single piece of content you produce will not always be gold, platinum standard, but that's okay. That's normal. Maybe a bit of controversy. Controversial, gets people's attention, particularly, you know, we were talking earlier, weren't we, about what I said was the green agenda. You know, there's a lot of controversy in the green agenda. You know, is it true? Is it not true? Did we land on the moon? Did we not land on the moon? And all that kind of thing. But there's a lot of controversy, and it's okay to have that controversy as debating points. You know, so it might be that Rachel talks about the ethical side, and she might actually have a debate with somebody about why doesn't everybody see this? Why doesn't everybody understand the dangers to the planet? Let's have a debate. And again, like I said about interviews, debates are great. So you don't have to have two people, one interviewing another. One of the things I've done a few times is panel shows where you have 2 or 3 or 4 of you and you debate topic, and you can act as the host. You can act as the person that keeps it all together. You know, the Fiona Bruce, if you like, character. And you keep it all together and get some debate going, get some controversy maybe within it. And if it's live, if you do that as a live stream, you can get people to actually ask questions in the comments. So I know some of this is like maybe way ahead for some of you, but I'm just trying to show you some of the stuff you can do and get you to see the size and scope of the opportunity. But like everything else, you've got to just get started. Once upon a time, whilst I've got all this experience now, once upon a time, I produced my first video and it was awful. It was bumbling. It was horrendous, but I got started. So in the podcast side, get started, get something recorded, get another recorded, get another recorded. So, you know, do it in small steps and do the research. And you can be as sophisticated or as basic as you choose to be. You do not have to be the BBC World Service. If you want to become the World Service because you're so geeky like me that you want all this kit and everything else, that's great, because that's obviously your particular choice. And then maybe thought provoking. So, you know, is it thought provoking? Ask yourself the question for your audience. Does it get them thinking? Does it get them pondering, asking questions? The little voice in their head.